have the applicant and officers. Good morning and welcome to today's meeting. I would like to officially open the meeting at 9:32 a.m. and I would like to acknowledge we are hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia. Pay respects to elders past and present and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. This meeting will be run in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders 2024 under the Planning and Development DAP Regulations 2011. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of the Planning and Development DAP Regulations 2011. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. Today's meeting is in two parts. The first part, Part B, we have the following members. We have Mayor Philomena Piferetti online. We have Councillor Josh Eveson online. In the room to my furthest left, we have Specialist Member Tony Arias. To my immediate left, we have Deputy Presiding Member Karen Hyde. My name is Francesca Lafanti, Presiding Member. There are no apologies for today's meeting and there are no members on leave of absence. Minutes for this meeting, as with other DAP meetings, will be available on the website. Members, for Part B, can I have a show of hands that you have duly considered all matters and all documentation relating to Part B of the agenda and Part B related information? That is unanimous for the minute taker. Members, do you have any disclosures of interest at this stage? I'll first go to members online, no. And just to both members online, was this considered by a council meeting or a briefing session? No, so no interest to declare. Thank you. Thank you. Members in the room, do you have any interest disclosures? No. There are no interest disclosures for Part B. We have no Form 1 applications. We do, however, have Form 2 application. And we have one presenter for the Form 2 application, Mitchell Cook, although not presenting, available for questions. Mitchell, do you want to make any comments before we go direct to questions for you?
No, happy to go to questions. It's been a long process the last 5 years or so, so really supportive of the recommendation and the council and DRP support over the last year has been great.
Thank you. Panel members, does anybody have questions to the applicant? Yes. Member Karen Hyde.
Thank you. Just wanting to understand the reasons behind having fewer single bedrooms and the changes to the distribution of apartment typologies. Is that due to sort of market research or practical?
Market research. I think from 2019 to now, the mix has gone up and down in various ways. Part of the problem with the first design that we couldn't get off the ground was because there was such a mix, there were so many unique types and construction costs was getting away from us. So by rationalising the building and basically deleting that 1 and 2 unique floor to make it more typical tower, we sort of had more of that typical plate, which was mainly 2 beds. We think there will be some 1 beds with a sort of a secondary home study or whatnot, but yeah, I think we have a similar amount to what we had originally, but yes, less than the 10.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Tony Arias.
So, just a clarification on balcony size. I know it's not much different to what was previously approved, but the rationale behind this balcony size, is it a limitation associated with setback or is it simply a design element?
Yes and no. There was some challenges with the setbacks, but I guess we made our own massive setback by giving that Lyric Lane Park. So in a way, 250 odd square metres back to the residents and the greater community. Each apartment sort of gets a share of that. Effectively, it was our sort of rationale.
Yeah. Okay. So it not necessarily a setback; it's more a design consideration to provide that additional privacy. Is that?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Do you have any further questions?
And a clarification around building height as a result of the changes to car parking. The building just gone a little bit high, 1.3, I think was.
1.3. We previously had a basement. Is possible, but was proving expensive, and putting those heritage buildings and neighbour buildings at, I guess, a greater risk, even a perceived risk. So the lifting out of the water table, we've squeezed in a mezzanine car park. And to maintain floor heights and amenity, it's sort of crept up 1.3. So 3/4 of the elevation is under the 25-metre height limit, and it's just the rear sort of quarter that pops up a little bit. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Members online, do you have any questions to the applicant? There are no further questions. Thank you. We will now move to city officers. City officers, I have listed here in attendance is Adrian Dinella, Nick Bertoni, Michael Robinson and Michael Worthington. Is that correct, or do you have any further in members?
Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Great. Officers, we're going to go to you now. I don't know who wishes to speak, but I'll ask for you to provide comments on any matters that have been raised and or any comments you want to make on the RA that you've provided to us before going to questions.
Thank you. Through the chair, we're happy to respond to any questions. As far as the amendment goes, we are satisfied that it generally meets the planning framework and it's recommended for support as evidenced in the RAR.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions to city officers? I'll first go to members online. Do you have any questions to city officers? No. Members in the room, do you have any questions? Yes, member Karen Hyde.
Thank you, presiding member. Just with the new advice note 1 relating to the building design, I'm just interested why you determined that that would be appropriate as an advice note, or if there were any elements of it that you felt really should be part of a condition.
That was based on the advice from our design review panel that it was more of a recommendation as opposed to a requirement for the design. They were generally satisfied through the design review process that the building was achieving design excellence. They felt if it could go further, there are some extra elements they could incorporate into the design. Hence, we felt it was necessary to put it as an advice note rather than a condition.
Okay, but you understand obviously an advice note is but that, and so it is just an encouragement or rather than an essential.
Yes, very true. That's correct. That was also again recommended by our design review panel to do the same. That it is simply just advice rather than enforcement by condition.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have no questions. If there are no questions, thank you, officers. We will move immediately to the recommendation in the agenda. At the beginning of the agenda is the recommendation for approval to 1, to accept it as Form 2, and 2, to approve it with some amended conditions. Is there a mover of the recommendation? It is moved, member Karen Hyde. Is there a seconder of the recommendation in the agenda? It is seconded, member Tony Arias. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, presiding member. I'm comfortable to accept this as a Form 2 application. I see that there are a number of modifications, but they are, in my opinion, all relatively minor. Doesn't change the substantive land use, really doesn't change the configuration or increase any impacts on the adjacent area. I understand the issue of the water table and the need to relocate the parking as a result of that, and understand that there has been an opportunity to reassess the apartment typologies given the time lapse from the original decision. I find the apartment mix still to provide adequate diversity of accommodation in line with the vision for the area. And I'm quite comfortable with the discretion to allow what is quite a marginal additional height of just over a metre. And I'm comfortable with the amended conditions, new condition, and thank the city for their explanation around the new advice note, which I'm quite comfortable to leave as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the seconder, Member Tony Arias, wish to speak on the item?
Thank you, presiding member. I also agree that the proposed modifications are appropriate to be considered as a Form 2 element. In terms of the proposed changes, in terms of what was previously approved, I consider them relatively minor, although probably the removal of basement car park is a significant element, but the consequence of that is relatively minor. I think the increase to the height is also considered minor in relation to the overall bulk of the building. I note that the design review panel was supportive of the proposed changes. Also that from a heritage perspective, the proposed modification actually perceived as a much better outcome and probably reflect a better response to the heritage elements of the theatre. In terms of the other discretions relating to setbacks and balcony dimensions, I think they, in the context of the building, are modest, and I don't think they are contrary to the integrity of the earlier approval and won't unduly impact on amenity impacts and consistent with the planning objectives for the site. So on that basis, I'm prepared to support the application.
Thank you. Are there any other members who wish to speak on this motion? Yes, Member Josh Evanson.
Yes, thank you. Look, this mixed-use Lyric Lane project embodies the kind of strategic transit-orientated, high-quality urban redevelopment that we urgently need in our town centres. So I'm very comfortable to support this one, despite some challenging site conditions, which are the reason for this item before us today. I wanted to acknowledge the time and effort and significant investment that applicants have put into this development. It aims to deliver residential and commercial tenancies, as was mentioned, along with a green pocket park and a piazza. This represents substantial economic and community benefit right here in Maylands. So despite recent design changes, I'm comfortable that proposal remains faithful to its original objectives and continues to deliver strong design integrity and activation of Lyric Lane. Definitely this development aligns squarely with the city's strategic intent for the activity centres to deliver high density mixed use buildings that enliven street frontages and support local commerce. It responds to site specific challenges appropriately and prioritises heritage retention. Principles that are directly encourage our town centre structure plans and local design policies. So I strongly support this, and it exemplifies the kind of thoughtful, high impact urban renewal that we encourage across the city of Bayswater. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on the motion? There are no other speakers. I will speak to the motion. I won't repeat everything that's already been said. I will merely just make a more general comment that this development, these changes are quite minor in the context of the development as far as I'm concerned, and I wholeheartedly support the comments that have already been said. From my perspective, this is a perfect location for this form of development. It has exceptional public transport, transportation generally around the area, as well as it has significant links to all of the range of activities that a development of this form would want, including recreation, community, day-to-day lifestyle matters, as well as it's a substantial development that will enhance both the laneway and the vibrancy of that entertainment area and support the lifestyle opportunities that people are looking for in urban areas. Like everybody else has spoken, changes, they are minor in the context of the development. They maintain and enhance what is a heritage building, and I commend them for significant activation of the lane, linking those other properties at the rear directly to 8th Avenue and providing that very positive movement of people and movement and activation in the place. Those are my comments. Are there any other speakers? If not, we move back to the mover for right of reply and close of debate.
I'm happy to go to vote, presiding member.
Thank you. We are going to the vote for the recommendation in front of us with no changes. All in favour? carried unanimously for the minute taker. There are no other matters for us to deal with in relation to this item. And I'm just going to. So there's no section 31 SAT reconsiderations. Accordingly, we are concluding this part of the agenda, part B, and I would like to thank Mayor Philomena Piperetti and Councillor Josh Evanson from the City of Bayswater for their attendance and participation. Thank you very much. We are now moving to part C, and it is for 9:47 for the minute taker while we change members.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just before we get started, I just want to check that member Councillor Ingrid Van Dawson, can you see and hear us clearly? Thank you.
Yes, I can see and hear you clearly. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and I can
Right.
see.
Thank you.
In the room, we have with us applicants. No, we have officers.
Developed.
No officers. Are officers online? Can city officers see and hear us? I've got listed here.
Yes, apologies. I'm here. Sorry for that. I needed to unmute my microphone, but yes, I can hear you fine.
And you are?
I'm Jonathan Dornan.
Jonathan. And I have Justin Lawrence as well. Is Justin?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. Okay, members, we now have a full composite of members. We have all of the other attendants here. I would like to officially open declare this meeting, this part of the meeting open, and welcome Councillor Andrew Sullivan and Councillor Ingrid Van Dawson to the panel. Members, can I have a show of hands that you have duly considered all matters and all documentation relating to Part C of the agenda and Part C related information? That is unanimous for the minute taker. There are two disclosures of interest which have been provided. The first one is from Councillor Andrew Sullivan. It's an impartiality interest. It relates to participation in a briefing session. This has been considered already by the MIDAP Executive Director, and approval to sit and fully participate in the meeting has been granted. The second disclosure from Councillor Ingrid, also an impartiality interest, same disclosure in terms of attending a briefing session. This was considered by myself, and approval has been granted to fully participate and to sit in this meeting and fully participate in the whole of the agenda. Members in the room, are there any other disclosures of interest relating to this part of the agenda? There are no other interest disclosures. We'll now move forward in the agenda. There are no Form 1 applications. There is a Form 2 application. We do have a number of submitters and presenters for today's meeting. Our first submitter is Katerina Gregg.
Katrina.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Katrina. Yes. Speaking against the proposal. We have received the submission. We have read through that submission, as you've seen at the beginning of the meeting, and I will now hand over to yourself if you'd like to present.
So as representing the Council of Owners for 1517 Essex Street, we are aware of the consideration of the proponent's variation application for the previous DAP application and approval, based on planning concerns which were reviewed and further addressed in response to the site. We don't believe there has been a material change to the suitability of the application in some key areas. So in particular, amenity, the noise proximity to neighbour residents of noise from rubbish control, now 6 1100 litre bins 3 times per week, which will require commercial trucks reversing with reversing signals and so on, for the bins to be emptied at 3 times a week, with glass being dropped from larger bins for pickup. There will be waste on sites for used cooking oil and so on. The waste removal report by Talus states that the waste removal will happen at times not inconvenient to guests or staff. And it will obviously have to comply with these regulations about timing. We note that there is no acknowledgement that it may be inconvenient to immediately adjacent neighbours. The type of licence on the number of patrons will affect the noise generated by the now very densely populated project. The Herring Storer report references the machinery noise, but makes no comment or acknowledgement of the effect on all Owls hospitality venue without previous obvious controls. There are 12 residential apartments next door at 15 to 17 Essex Street, 1 only bed and breakfast establishment and 2 business mixed-use units, a wine bar and gallery. We are concerned that, again, the same application does not reference that these are residents right next door and constantly refers to 15 to 17 as a short stay hospitality venue. It's not. Change scale of intensity of occupation, we are concerned that 247 guests in 80 rooms has become 3, which is an excellent idea, but 263 guests in fewer bedrooms increases a hostel type accommodation rather than a hotel type accommodation. There are still the shortfall of 28 bays, which was previously acknowledged, for parking, and the access that will be required for minibuses, Uber, taxi operators, or the turning arc of rubbish trucks has not been resolved. We also note that the heritage requirements obviously require the acknowledgement of the heritage adjacent buildings, including walls that co-join the premises. We also note that in a former application for the buildings currently on site caused water damage into the basement through the heritage wall of 15 to 17. We don't see any sign that that has yet been addressed. So we are largely in concern still that the key thing is that none of the entertainment or tourist accommodation venues in close proximity have a 24/7 operating model. We acknowledge that it's an improvement to have less height, but there still is no comprehension of the effect of this density of 24/7 potential for noise. If there are less occupants of the building, less space within the building, less common space within the building to achieve a greater density of occupants of the building, the only place those occupants will go is outside. There's no regulation on that not being obnoxious early in the morning. So the idea of that this small section of Essex Street can withstand the current proposal is unacceptable in that context. It will be detrimental to those who actually make this as their home and contribute extensively to the community. This includes the financial impost of being custodians of heritage listed dwellings. We're not here today and gone tomorrow visited. So essentially the compressed density and therefore magnified intensity of the development proposed has yet to address these issues fully. We appreciate that it's a lower building, but we are still concerned about the extensive amount of noise, the fact that the rubbish cannot be collected on site properly. The other day I was actually driving down Norfolk Lane and had to stop because, as did all the rest of the traffic on Norfolk Street, because the truck could only just turn out of the lane into which it had reversed onto Norfolk Lane to leave the premises. So the rubbish truck 3 times a day will have to reverse in and out with the reversing signal and only just makes it round that bend. There are still issues that we feel need to be addressed in terms of conditions to make it a feasible approval. So yes to the height, no yet to noise, amenity and intensity of development.
Thank you for your presentation. Members, are there any questions to this presenter? There are no questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. If you'd like to stay in the room, you're more than welcome to. You'd just like to take a seat here. We have our next presenter, which is the applicant's team. I have Michael Stoker, Daniel Payton, Susan Matthew Rowlandson and Tim Apley. Only 3 of you are indicated as.
Yeah, Matthew will be online, I believe.
Do you know the requirements in terms of speaking? So you have a total of 9 minutes for those that are speaking. And we also have questions available to the members that are available, that are online to speak to this. I'm going to hand over to yourselves if you would like to speak to the item.
Well, thank you, members and councillors, and thank you, Katrina, for that. My name is Michael Stocko. I'm from Developed, and I'm here today on behalf of landowners of number 19 Essex Street, Fremantle, with respect to item 4.1. I'm speaking in favour of the City of Fremantle's recommendation for approval for the tourist accommodation known as Lilo Fremantle. Subject site is owned city centre under the city's local planning scheme 4. The site's located within the Central Fremantle Heritage Area and features a mix of residential and commercial land uses. This will be the second DAP approval, the first in December of 2024. The main difference being a significant reduction in building height, 4 stories to 3, which is roughly a 3-metre reduction. The application before you today is an improved outcome, or is at least considered an improved outcome in addition to last year's approval. And since such time, the development has undergone an intentional review to try to satisfy outstanding community concerns and provide a better design outcome. The proposed amendments have been considered favourable by the city as they hope to reduce height, bulk and scale and improve any remnant issues seen in the previous approval. On balance, this is a better design outcome than what was previously determined. The proposal will feature the same setbacks, built form and overall design. The number of bedrooms has been reduced by 18 rooms, and as assessed in the previous approval, the shortfall in parking is still considered acceptable, with the amended proposal having decreased parking demand due to the reduction of the number of rooms, which naturally reduces the amount of occupants present at any one time. The application was re-advertised to surrounding neighbours who raised concerns regarding the nature of the land use in the city centre zone. The previous approval only received 25 submissions, with the current only receiving 7. I would consider that a much better outcome. Any concerns have now been dealt with swiftly through the support of the city. We've been able to provide amended plans, further justification, and just an overall better understanding of what's being proposed. Now, the proposal is not considered to be detrimental in our views to heritage values. It's considered that the proposed amendments in principle are the same as the current approval, minus the additional story. And these are the exact words from the City of Fremantle as well. Overall, the amendment is considered to be consistent with the requirements of local planning framework, not considered to result in any amenity impacts. And accordingly, we seek the DAP's approval based on the recommendation. Thank you for your time. I'll pass on to Susanna, who can talk you through the design outcomes. And then any questions, by all means, please ask.
Thank you, Michael. If you could share the presentation. So as Michael suggested, the impact obviously in terms of any of the street elevations has been now minimised. You can see the current approved design on the top image and then the proposal on the image below. So from Essex Street, there would be no line of sight to any of the built form on the rear building. As you can see, the resultant from removing one level has meant that what was previously a little triangle that you might have seen at certain angles, although even that was debatable, is now not current at all on the Essex Street elevation. Next image, thank you. Then looking along Norfolk Lane, you can see now the interaction between the existing building and the proposed building, and the red outline demonstrating the drop of 1 story in height, as Michael has outlined. The same design objectives and aesthetics that were approved in the first round have also been maintained in this looking at height along this elevation. So the same concepts in terms of how it refers to heritage and how it refers to the existing building have been maintained in terms of design. Next, thank you. Just another angle that shows again clearly the outline of the red is where the building was, and the rendered view shows the drop in height. Next, thank you. In terms of the sections that we had proposed as part of the original approved submission, you can see here that in terms of the sight line from the streets and from surrounding neighbourhoods, that impact has now been lessened and drops below any eye line from any eyesight in terms of its height. Next, thank you. See the previous scheme on the left in terms of Norfolk Lane, and the profile that you could start to see on the left has now been removed on the right. Next, thank you. And now from the corner of Essex Street, you can see on the left there in the background, the terracotta form that you can see would have been visible is now not visible from the that point of view, as a drop in height has also meant that it's not visible now from the surrounding streets. Next, thank you. I think that's the last slide. So in conclusion, the form has been dropped in height, and the outcome or the impact in terms of dropping the form in height is where it was visible, even at its minor extent from street frontages, has now been minimised to show clearly in these views of the before and after there is now not visible. The design aesthetic, the design inspiration and the design language has all been maintained in accordance with the approved application as it was made earlier late last year.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers from your team at this point? Completed your presentation? Thank you. Presentation has been completed. We have a number of the applicants team with us today for answering of questions. Panel members, are there any questions to the applicants team? Yes, Member Andrew Sullivan.
Thanks, Presiding Member. The first question I have, just in terms of the bar facilities on Essex Street and the liquor licensing requirements that you might be looking for with regard to that, can you just clarify the nature of that bar as being a guest-only facility, and also what sort of liquor licensing and operating hours are you looking at?
Give that to Tim, if that's okay.
Sure, no worries at all. Thank you for the opportunity to answer that question to you. So yeah, we are having a bar. The plan is to have a bar on site there that will be open to our guests and also the ability for the general public to come in as well. It's a bar that we will use during the day. It's not a early morning bar as such, primarily designed around our guests, but will be open to the general public as well. In the morning we'll serve coffee, breakfast, etc., and then drinks into the afternoon as well.
And do you propose to have house rules as to when those facilities can be used by guests internally? Are there cut-off times into the evening?
Yes, there will be cut-off times into the evening, and there will also be when we are able to serve it. We are looking at a bar offering, which is similar to what we have in Brisbane, Councillor, which is a self-serve type offering, which enables us to turn the taps on and off at a particular time. So we can control all that very easily.
The presiding member, the other range of questions I had relate to the bin storage area and the, I guess, the waste management plan approach. The waste management plan deals with hours of bin collection, but I couldn't see where it was dealing with hours of putting rubbish into the bin store, and particularly utilising the back of house area, which is an open area, to gain access to the bin store into the evening. So I'm just questioning, do you have in your waste management plan rules around when you can use the bin storage area, when you can access it through the back of house area, when you can drop glass into bins and the like? Is that being considered in your waste management plan?
Yeah, so the waste management plan has been updated to reflect the revised design. Now that's been approved by the internal department at the City of Fremantle. In terms of the exact when glass is dropped into a bin, I have to reconfirm if that's actually in the report. But in terms of the waste management report itself, that's been supported by the city's waste management team, so it's deemed satisfactory.
So I just, what the process of getting rubbish from the kitchens, the bar, and those sort of things, is it all going to go out through the back of the open air back of house area?
It will be walked out, correct.
And are those the door? I read in there that it is a automatic door, so you push a button that goes up and then comes back down again, just from a smell point of view and the like. Is that correct?
In terms of
so the roller doors on the bin store, when people are taking rubbish out from the kitchens and the like, I'm just querying how they're operated and what sort of noise generation they're going to incur.
Let me just get the plans. Yeah, so essentially it would be, yeah, you're correct, it'd be a push button system. But in terms of whether it's treated from essentially like a ventilation point of view, that would be dealt with through the building permit, through the NCC. That would need to be managed accordingly.
And just the last question, if I may, presiding member, the bin store area that's shown, is that servicing Lilo's tenancy as well as the existing two other tenancies? And if not, where are they storing their bins?
Give me 2 seconds, that's just need to check that. Correct. So that the waste management will service the overall building management, and that'll be monitored through a waste management plan, basically managing the bin storage area, the cleaning of that bin storage area, the ferrying of bins as required, and that'll be monitored by staff and cleaners to ensure it's kept in a cleanly state.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from panel members to the applicant? Yes, Member Karen Hyde.
Thank you. Just in response to the previous presenters' comments and following up from Councillor Sullivan's questioning around waste management, when I read the amended acoustic report, it seems to suggest that the main impact of noise from the development on neighbouring properties is to do with mechanical, and that is tonal, and therefore there are means of dealing with that. previously when we discussed the application, we did talk about impulsive noise and matters of emptying bins and car doors and all of those sorts of truck doors and that sorts of things. In the amended acoustic report, it's still referencing the mechanical noise, and it doesn't seem to address those matters of impulsive noise. Could you comment on that, please?
Yeah, so there was an amended acoustic report submitted, and there was a amended condition on the recommendation for approval that be implemented as part of the revised approval. In terms of mechanical noise, that's always going to be present, no matter the type of building, but it's about managing that. That'll be managed through the treatments, the times of certain actions, and those certain things.
Yes, I understand that, but in terms of the actual references in the acoustic report, where does that amended report talk about those issues of throwing bulk rubbish into bins and those kinds of impulsive noises? I can see that there's plenty of reference to mechanical noise, but not to those issues.
Thank you, Member. When you mean impulsive noise, is that like ambient noise or background noise? Or?
No, well, I'm talking about the impact of delivering refuse to the bins and bins being tipped up into the bin truck, that refuse associated with this development and the kind of noise that creates. What I'm seeing in the noise report is around air conditioning and ventilation, that kind of ongoing tonal noise, rather than the impulsiveness of noise when it just happens late at night or early in the morning.
In terms of just the design of the bin stores, obviously they have a wall that faces the boundary and noise travels sort of away from actually the neighbouring residents. We've obviously reduced a level of building, so in terms of the travel distance from removing waste, as well as it's a lesser actual travel distance, resulting in less time and less noise to a degree. The overall collection itself that was previously approved, you would still have those ongoing noises from time to time. Taking rubbish out of bins, putting them into a garbage truck does create some level of noise. But that's just part of waste management. I don't know if we can.
I'll ask the city further answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions to the applicants at this point? Sorry.
Sorry, I've just joined. It wasn't letting me speak before. I just had to re-enter. I just wanted to confirm that the additional tenancies bins are allowed for in the bin store.
I'll address the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from panel members at this juncture to the applicant's team? If not, you can come back and ask further questions. Thank you to the applicant's team. We will now move forward to officers. Officers, would you like to make comments on this proposal and respond to anything you've heard to date before we go to questions from panel members?
No further comments from me, but yeah, I'll wait to hear any questions you may have.
Thank you. Members, are there questions to city officers? Is Councillor Andrew Sullivan first?
Thanks, Presiding Member. Really just following up from the questions I asked the applicant, just wanting to know whether the city has considered essentially the issue of impulsive noise relating to the utilisation of the bin store. In other words, rubbish going into the bin store. I think the report and the conditions cover rubbish going from the bin store to the truck in terms of hours of operation, but there's nothing that seems to cover the hours of operation of the bin store itself and the operation management of that. It's I guess the point being, it's very common in management plans to say, don't tip your beer bottles into the bins. after 7 p.m. at night. Is there anything in there that covers that, or should that be something that should be included into amended condition 17 to reinforce some operational requirements?
So the original, so the waste management plan was sort of amended to address the initial sort of concerns from the landowners, which was the collection of the waste. We didn't previously receive too many concerns regarding sort of bottles and the like being emptied into the bins, but yeah, I would agree that a potential amended condition would be appropriate to address that. That yeah, bottles aren't emptied into the bins after a certain time. It is an enclosed sort of bin store, but yeah, again, I wouldn't disagree with an amended condition.
And just on that, from our perspective, we'd be happy to work
Sorry.
with.
Yeah. I appreciate your comments. Can we just at question time to the officers at the moment? We can come back to officers if we need to, but thank you. Continue.
So I just flagged that I don't know whether the city would like to potentially draft an amendment, but flagged that I would like to see condition 17 amended to do two things, to basically restrict the outdoor back of house area to the sort of operating hours that are similar to the waste collection truck, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Particularly relative, the back of house area relates to the adjoining units, particularly. There is another access, so they can still use the bin. And I guess also operating restrictions that mitigate impulsive noise between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. It may well be, and I don't know whether the officers know this, or the applicant might wish to respond, the presiding member lets them after we deal with the city. But it's unclear to me whether when you use those bin store areas that you push a button, the roller door goes up. If the roller door went back down and it was acoustic, then there might not be an issue. So there are issues which we are unaware of, but I do think we need to condition those. So it would be the sort of condition that would require the city of Fremantle to look into that detail from the applicant's revised waste management plan and confirm that they're properly dealt with one way or another.
Thank you. We may go back to the applicant in just one moment, but I'll ask questions further before going there. Are there any further questions from panel members? City officers? Yes, Member Karen.
Thank you. It's on a similar vein to panel member Councillor Sullivan. Having read the amended acoustic report and following on from the city's response, I'm still not seeing in that acoustic report reference to matters of waste management creating noise, and that sort of after hours noise. It really does focus on mechanical, which is to do with ventilation and air conditioning. So in that respect, would the city consider an amendment to the acoustic report as part of condition 12, amended condition 12, prior to implementation of recommendations, just to make sure that those aspects are adequately covered?
Yeah, we could consider an amendment to the acoustic report condition. However, I believe we could sort of draft a suitable condition for the waste management, for an amended waste management plan to be provided that addresses the disposal of waste into those bins without needing an amended acoustic report.
Okay, thank you. If I may follow up,
yes, you may.
How would you suggest that amended condition 17 be constructed, therefore?
So potentially prior to lodgement of a building permit application for the development hereby approved, the owner is to submit an amended waste management plan for approval by the city, detailing at a minimum the following. So just the standard requirements, so estimated waste generation, storage receptacles, collection methodology for waste, and additional management requirements, which could include the disposal of waste and times of disposal into the storage receptacles. And we could include an advice note that restricts that. So with regard to condition 17, the waste management plan is to restrict disposal of waste into the storage receptacles from between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Do you have any further questions? Other than that, I couldn't take all of that down in a dictation sense.
Sorry, I can repeat it if you'd like.
We may come back to that one in a moment while we finish questions. If you can think about the language of a condition, should members wish to move something, that would be great. And then we will obviously need a slow conversation on that for our minute taker to capture the correct language. Are there any further questions at this juncture?
Presiding member?
Yes.
A clarification. One of the submitters raised the issue of access in terms of buses and Ubers and taxis and the like. I just want a sort of clarification that the proposed modifications don't actually address that issue at all. There's no change. So I'm trying to understand whether it's valid to be considered if there's no change.
That's correct. There's no change. It's as per the original proposal. Is just using the side streets, Essex Street, and the lane between Norfolk and Essex, and any surrounding car parks. So there's sufficient parking down at the near the boat harbour, which can be utilised, but it is as per the previous proposal.
Thank you.
Any further questions at this juncture? I have a question to city officers. Sorry.
Councillor Van Dawson.
I beg your pardon, Councillor Van Dawson. Did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I just one of the submitters raised, one of the presenters today raised the just around the bar hours of operation. Can you just confirm? I did look at the conditions. I didn't see any restrictions on that. Has the applicant detailed their proposed hours of operation of the bar?
I believe the small bar will operate just in accordance with the liquor license, with a small bar liquor license. I'm not aware of any restrictions to the operating hours.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, Councillor Van Dawson?
No, not from me, thank you.
I have a question to the officers. There has been some question raised in relation to the manoeuvring of vehicles, in particularly the waste vehicle from the road. Do you have any comments that you wish to make regarding a truck manoeuvring and or reversing in the street to get into the lane and any impact that may have on road users? Are there any concerns there? I do appreciate that many of the streets are reasonably tight in that area.
It's not considered that Norfolk Lane is a heavily trafficked street, so it is considered that there's sufficient manoeuvring space for it to pull up in Norfolk Lane and reverse into the subject site via a right of way which is located on 21 Essex Street, to the rear of 21 Essex Street. So it was considered that the manoeuvrability is acceptable.
Thank you. If there are no further questions at this juncture, I will ask a question to the applicant, and I would this can go to any one of the applicant's team. There's been a lot of conversation regarding condition 17, condition 12, particularly around amendments to the waste management plan to impose controls on time of day for noise activities, particularly around the waste management, both operationally as well as through the pickup and delivery. Do you have any comments you would like to make in relation to that? I'd be interested in hearing that before we make judgment decisions on these matters.
You want to comment on that, Matt?
Hi, all. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes, I can hear and I can see you clearly.
Okay, thank you. Apologies, I was having some difficulties before. So I just want to clearing up the discussion around the operations of the bar. So it's a self-service bar with reusable glassware, cutlery and crockery. So the bottles and things like that, which are noisy in the being disposed of in the waste room is highly unlikely. Because Tim, will there be any bottles?
No, it's a self-service bar.
Yeah. So all we're really talking about is just general waste. And in regards to the actual waste room, the automatic door, we do only need one automatic door, obviously, for when we're removing the bins. That the one to the south could easily be changed to a manual typical door that the staff can take the waste in and out of. Tim, did you just want to touch on the hours of operation?
Yeah, I suppose just from my perspective, I mean, we have a lot of people sleeping in-house, obviously, so it's in our best interest, and we're happy to work with the city on this, but it's in our best interest to make sure that we're not disposing of rubbish at times which would be a disturbance to people in the property itself. So happy to work, but as Matt sort of alluded to, it's a different model than what we would traditionally see in a hotel or environment. In terms of hours of operation from the bar, I think I touched on that beforehand. But we're happy to work with the city around making sure that there's no impact to the residents in terms of the waste management of the disposal. We've already dealt with the disposal of the trucks, but the disposal into the waste room, as I said, happy to work with them. We think 7 p.m. may be a little too early, but again, we're happy to work with the city on that.
Thank you. And the second question that's fallen out of those discussions relates to the bar hours of operation. And can you also clarify what you mean by self-service bar? I am not familiar with a self-service bar in Perth. There may be one. So I'm interested in what that means, particularly in relation to operating bar times and operating hours, which was part of that conversation. Over to yourselves.
Sure, thank you. So a self-service bar is primarily, it's a bar which you can pour drinks yourself. So it's a self-service bar. We can turn the taps on at any time. It's all under all the liquor licensing requirements. We have the same option in Brisbane. So you basically, so we can turn what I'm saying is we can turn the bar on and off at any time. As the city said before, we'll be adhering to our liquor license requirements. And we'll be open in the morning for a coffee and breakfast facility, and then opening up the bar in the evening for guests.
So further question that I have follows up from that is in relation to noise. It's been the conversation we're currently having. Typically a bar, not a self-service bar, but typically a bar has a physical shut-off and a removal of people from continuing to have a number of drinks and stay chatting and talking and making noise. How does those elements operate in this facility, and how do you say those are managed from a noise perspective? And again, the conversation is around the noise element. I appreciate that the management through liquor licensing is separate to us, but I'm giving you that element in relation to noise associated with the bar activity after hours.
So after hours, the bar will close. The bar, we will close down the bar like any normal bar and stop serving drinks in that area there, and it won't be open to the public from that point, and it'll be closed off as it is in the area there, and the space is used as a hangout space for our guests, but not for the general public at all. It's just part of the communal spaces within the property.
Thank you. Members, do you have any further questions to either city officers or applicant team before we go to the motion? Yes, Councillor Sullivan.
Thanks, Presiding Member. Just a final question about the nature of your liquor licence proposal. Are you proposing to apply for a small bar licence or a hotel licence, noting that a number of the backpacker hotels, if you like, utilise hotel licences, which are far more relaxed than small bar licences? Can you confirm what type of licence you're proposing?
Tim, can you confirm what licences you have elsewhere?
I believe we have a hotel licence in Brisbane. I just need to confirm that from WA.
Thank you. Before we go to the motion or the recommendation, any other questions from members? If not, we will go to the
To handle potential rewording of condition 17.
I will ask the officers. There was a question, a few officers online.
I think it was Jonathan.
To the officers, John or Jonathan, there's been a question regarding potentially rewording of conditions. In the event that we go to that in the meeting, do you have language ready or wording ready for that discussion?
That's correct. I do have an amended condition prepared.
Thank you. Any questions further?
If you're happy to handle that through the course of the, yeah. No, I'm good.
Presiding Member, sorry, perhaps I could ask the city staff to consider some wording for an amendment regarding the hours of operation of, or the hours of public access ability to the bar area being restricted to the sort of usual hours that I think a lot of our bars are restricted to through planning rather than just liquor licensing, being typically say 6 a.m. through to midnight.
You can ask that, yep.
So I'll just giving you the heads up whether there is a clause that you would draft for us.
Thank you. We're now going to go to the motion. There is a motion at the beginning of the agenda. The motion is to accept the application as a Form 2 under DAP Regulation 17 and to approve the application, a series of plan numbers are contained here with amended conditions. Is there a mover of the motion as currently written in the agenda? It is moved, Karen Hyde. Is there a seconder to the motion as written? It is seconded, Member Tony Arias. Would the mover like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm comfortable to accept this application as a Form 2. I note that the reduction of an entire story is relatively significant to the development, but as a proportion of the overall refurbishment and new build, it's not substantially changing. Typology, the land uses are not changing, and so I'm comfortable that it is a Form 2. I note that there are changes to the room typologies, and understand those to be associated with technical practicalities and operational and market research. I do note that with these changes, not only is the overall height significantly reduced, but there is also a reduction in the parking shortfall. I was comfortable with the parking shortfall before, given the urban environment and the fact that this location is very much transit oriented and city centre. So that's almost an added bonus that the calculations are for fewer parking areas being required. I think most people will be using public transport or active means of getting around, which is what we want to support in transit-oriented developments. I do note that some of the management and technical reports have been updated. I will come back to that. I think that this change reduces the actual or even potentially perceived impact on the surrounding land uses, and I don't see any other issues necessarily arising from the changes. So it is still supported by the referral agencies. With all that said, I'm happy to support the application, but I would propose to amend condition 17, which relates to the waste management plan, and seek with your approval the officers' input to that, so that we might consider some appropriate wording to reflect our discussion around amendment of that plan.
Thank you. Would the officers provide some language, please, at this juncture, so we can consider that as part of the, or can be, the mover can consider it as part of the actual wording of the amendment?
Yeah, not a problem. Whenever you're ready, I've got the amended condition ready to go.
Yes, if you can.
Yep. So prior to lodgement of a building permit application for the development hereby approved, the owner is to submit an amended waste management plan for approval by the city. Detailing at a minimum the following. Estimated waste generation. Proposed storage of receptacles. Collection methodology for waste. Restriction of disposal times for waste into storage receptacles. And this can have an additional note sort of added to the end of that sentence. So note, waste is not to be disposed into storage receptacles between 7 a.m. and before 7 a.m. and after 7 p.m. Yep, and operation of the automatic door to the bin storage area. And this also has a note. So note, the door to the bin storage area is to remain closed when waste is not being disposed of. And a final point, additional management requirements to be implemented and maintained for the life of the development. Yeah, and sorry, just one final sentence. The amended waste management plan must be implemented at all times to the satisfaction of the City of Fremantle.
Okay. Now, could you send that through to the DAP Secretariat, please, just to make sure?
Yes.
Members, did everybody hear that clearly, or do you require it to be reread out? No, everyone's clear about what it is?
I was going to have a question, but perhaps it needs to be moved first.
So that is moved. Member Karen Hyde, are you satisfied with that language?
I'm satisfied with the language, presiding member, but not necessarily the hours. And I would have thought that at 9 p.m. might be more appropriate than 7 p.m.
Okay, so what do you want to move? So having heard the suggested wording?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with all of the suggested wording, but when it gets to waste is not to be disposed before 7 a.m. And after 9 p.m. rather than 7 p.m.
Thank you. So that is what is being moved on the table. Is there a seconder for Amendment 1? It is seconded Member Andrew Sullivan. Would you like to speak to that?
Only very briefly. I think this is a more comprehensive approach to condition 17. When last we considered this application, I think we had hoped that some of these matters would be taken into account through the waste management approach. If that has not been the case, and that has been independently assessed by the city, I feel it's appropriate for the DAP to reinforce those matters which it requires to be considered as part of this amended application in terms of waste management, so as to lessen the impact on the fairly tight-knit community and land uses, particularly sensitive land uses such as residential development in proximity to this activity.
Would the seconder like to speak to Amendment 1?
Thank you, presiding member. Yes, I agree with that. I did have, I guess, some sympathy for perhaps the hours of operation to be dealt with a little bit differently in terms of when you put rubbish in bins. I can imagine that there would be operational ways of putting rubbish into the bins that don't impact on the neighbours. Particularly important is the neighbours in the immediately adjoining residential, because the back bin store door and the neighbours' upper bedroom windows and doors are in incredibly close proximity, and that's why I raised the concern about the use of the back of house laneway into the evening. It's why I raised concerns about, you know, that roller door potentially going up and down every time you want to take rubbish in there, and then potentially the door still being up when rubbish is tipped into the larger receptacles. So all of those things can be managed through operational means, and I'm sure the city ultimately can deal with revised waste management plans along the way, because normally these waste management plans are fluid in a sense that they can be amended subsequently with the approval of the city. So I do see that the applicant is saying they're happy to do these things because they would be happy to do them because their own residents are living directly above that roller door and directly above that bin store as well. So I have confidence that Lilo, as an operator, will know how to do that, but without becoming a wordsmith and trying to get the wording exactly right. I'm quite comfortable with the wording, and it can, I'm sure, to the satisfaction of the city is normally enough to allow the city to make minor adjustments.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on Amendment 1? I will speak to Amendment 1 myself. Thank you to the officers for helping craft the amended condition. I am supportive of the amended condition. I think that there is an appropriate flexibility for applicant. I also acknowledge that the plan or the information will require implementation and discussion with the city, and I'm satisfied that this will provide that benefit to both the adjoining residential properties as well as ensure for operation of this particular use, given the type and nature of it and the material that we've received today, particularly around some of the noisy waste activities such as glass, and we've had that clarified through today's meeting in the form and type of bar service that would typically generate those very noisy elements. In this particular development, there is a different method being undertaken in that operation, and that should also minimise the noise and the wasteful activity, as well as the timeframes that they would need it, and obviously the volume of waste. Those are my comments. If there are no other comments, I go back to the mover of Amendment 1 for right of reply and close off debate on Amendment 1.
Happy to close debate on Amendment 1, presiding member.
Thank you. Amendment 1 debate has been closed. We are now going to the vote on the amendment to modify condition 17. All those in favour? It is carried unanimously for the minute taker. I move back to the mover for continuation of discussion.
Nothing further to say on this other than support. Thank you, presiding member.
Thank you. I now go to the seconder for comments. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, presiding member. Firstly, I think the proposed modifications are actually appropriate to be considered as a Form 2. I have supported the motion. At the previous meeting, the issue of height and bulk and scale was a matter of concern, significant concern by submitters, and was comprehensively considered. I think the Form 2 changes proposed, which involve a reduction of height, a reduction in bulk and scale, I think is a positive thing, and I think should be supported by the community. In terms of the land use itself, once again, it was a matter that the panel considered seriously in terms of whether it should be contemplated within the city zone, and obviously the panel view was it should be and was supported. Once again, I don't see that the changes proposed alter that, and I believe the use is still appropriate within the city zone. The issue of car parking, as Member Hyde has indicated, was satisfactory previously. Given there's a reduction in the shortfall, I think that's a positive thing. And the shortfall previously supported, I believe, particularly in the Fremantle CBD context, is appropriate given the public transport availability. The issue of heritage, I think, remains unchanged, even though the RAR does address that. There's been considerable discussion about waste management, and I'm satisfied that the proposed changes to condition 17 comprehensively address potential nuisance and noise that is typically generated through waste management. So on that basis, I will support the motion to approve the changes. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on this motion? Yes, Member Andrew Sullivan.
Thanks, Presiding Member. Obviously, I've always supported the land use for this site, for this proposal, but previously had significant concerns enough to not support the development because of the built form and its impact on the heritage buildings to the rear and the like. And I made it very clear that I wouldn't be able to support a 4-storey building, but would seek modification to reduce it down to 3-storey. And of course, that has come forward. So in the context of what I've stated previously through the Form 1 process, my major concern with the proposal has been met. Notwithstanding that, I do have some reservations about the extent of change and the intensification of the number of beds, but particularly the typology of the operation and the demographic that then attracts, because there is change in the model in a sense. That all of those things are quite significant, and perhaps a Form 1 process would have been more appropriate. But because I support the proposal, I'm quite, I guess, comfortable in accepting a Form 2 for this. The concern I continue to have, I guess, is not so much with the proposal, but the intensification of it. And the demographics of it means that there are things which we need to pay closer attention to than we perhaps did through the Form 1 process. The liquor licensing, I know, is a separate issue, but I do want to point out very clearly that if a small bar license is gained, well, then I'm normally relatively comfortable that the hours of operation can be just left to liquor licensing. But when you apply a hotel license, which is typically used for accommodation hotels, it basically allows for a whole range of in-house services 24 hours a day. So that's the nature of a hotel license. Is quite different to the sort of public bar licenses that we're used to, being either a small bar license or a tavern license for a public bar. So a little bit unclear. The potential obviously is, if with a hotel license, that the hours of operation become a planning matter as well as a liquor licensing matter, because you don't really want to have a 24-hour bar spilling out into the street with other bars being restricted, but also with residential both in the building and the like. Now, clearly, LILO aren't going to do that, but there is, I think, a requirement for us to deal with that matter. It is quite usual now in the city of Fremantle, and I say usual, well, now, as in the city has taken a view that it needs to include hours of operation in its planning recommendations. I'm surprised this one didn't have it in there. So I would move an amendment. I don't know if the staff have drafted one, but essentially I believe the hours of operation that have been applied to similar operations elsewhere have essentially been from 6 a.m. through to midnight, 7 days a week. And I would think that that would be an appropriate way to go. The wording of it might need to be nuanced because being a hotel, it's quite reasonable for hotel guests to utilise the space for lounging and the like. But the bar functionality should essentially, in terms of public activity, should certainly be restricted, and the utilisation of the external alfresco kind of areas and the like, again, should be restricted as well. So that is common in other backpackers in Fremantle. We have one which has a outdoor terrace in the same way that this one does, and that terrace is restricted to regular bar hours, if you like. So perhaps if I could ask through you, presiding member, whether the City of Fremantle staff have managed to draft a proposed amendment.
Thank you. Have city staff, you've heard what's just been asked of in relation to an amendment. Do you have any language detailing that?
Yes, I do. So this is actually from from another approval for a rooftop bar deck, which I believe Councillor Sullivan was referring to. So it relates to the operating hours of the small bar is to be restricted to between the following hours to the satisfaction of the City of Fremantle. So we applied to this approval on the other sides to the hours of 6 a.m. and 12 midnight, Monday to Saturday. (10 a.m. and 12 midnight on Sunday. (12 noon and 10 p.m. Christmas Day and Good Friday). And in parentheses, ancillary to a meal only. Then 12 noon to 12 midnight Anzac Day. And 12 midnight to 2 a.m. on New Year's Day. We also added a final sentence that said any music will be kept to ambient conversational level only. And that was it.
Do you want that read out again?
I would only suggest that the hours of operation, the first two, just be merged into one. I don't see the need for a later start time on a Sunday because the operator may wish to be serving, coffee and the like early in the morning. So I would just make it Monday to Sunday, 6 a.m. to 12. So the first two just be merged into one, 6 a.m. to 12 midnight, Monday to Sunday, and then with all of the other.
So can I just clarify before we go to a seconder, what I heard today from the applicant and documentation is that the space operates for two activities, one being alcohol, so for a bar activity, and one being what I will use casual language as cafe, which typically open early. Is that correct? Am I correct from the applicant?
Yeah, could I just
Great.
So you're clarifying?
Your question.
Yes.
There is a cafe component, and there also obviously is a small bar component. But in regards to this amendment, is this for the public or is this for the actual business operation?
And we're going to get to that one.
Yeah, so I was going to mention that as well. In the very first part of the wording that was put to us, it said small bar. So I think it actually needs to be changed because it's not a small bar. It's technically just a bar, but I think the wording at the beginning needs to be changed that the hours of operation of the bar relative to public access.
For general public access.
General public access, and then following on that, because I don't see any need to restrict the internal hours of operation of a hotel. So I don't know whether you can recraft those words, Jonathan.
Yes, I could give it a shot. Just one moment.
Can I just have you read it out again? I appreciate there's been a couple of changes. But
Mhm.
can I just have you read it out, and then, like was asked earlier from the DAP Secretariat, can you send that through? Could you just read it out for clarity for everybody before we get a seconder?
Not a problem. So this was as previously read, without Councillor Sullivan's proposed amendment. So the operating hours of the small bar is to be restricted to between the following hours to the satisfaction of the City of Fremantle. So this first point will be A and B combined. So that's 6 a.m. to 12 midnight, Monday to Sunday. Then point B, 12 noon and 10 p.m. Christmas Day and Good Friday. And in parentheses, ancillary to a meal only. Point C, 12 noon to 12 midnight Anzac Day. And point D, 12 midnight to 2 a.m. New Year's Day. And then a final sentence, any music will be kept to ambient conversational level only.
Sorry, could I just ask, I thought with point D, Jonathan previously said 12 noon to 2 a.m, but I'm just...
So I've got listed down here.
9 to 2 a.m. It's just saying on New Year's Day, you can go a bit longer. Because
okay, so we've got a general opening. So this is new condition.
Yes, this is the new condition.
For the minute taker, Amendment 2 is new condition, and it reads, and I've got the language here, the operating hours of the bar for general public access is to be restricted to the following hours to the satisfaction of the City of Fremantle, point 1 or A, 6 a.m. to midnight, Monday to Sunday. 12 noon to 10 p.m. Christmas and Good Friday, inclusive with an ancillary meal. Or the language you've got is probably better than what I've just read out. 12 noon to 12 midnight Anzac Day. Midnight to 2 a.m. New Year's Day, and any music to be kept at ambient conversational level. I have a question. What are we referring to by that music? Because I'm assuming that there are times of the day it can be loud and noisy, compliant with the noise regs. So that at the moment is a blanket provision in that proposed motion.
Yeah, in terms of my proposal, Jonathan, I'd probably exclude that last part.
Mm-hmm.
That music?
Yes.
Exclude it completely?
Yes, because I'll speak to why.
That's okay. You're moving the motion, so I just want to get clear that. So
I'll speak to that.
Four wings to that motion. One is the 6 a.m. to midnight, Monday to Sunday, or 12 noon to 10 p.m. Christmas and Good Friday with ancillary with a meal, 12 noon to 12 midnight Anzac Day, and 12 to midnight 2 a.m. additional time for New Year's Day. They are the 4 points to that opening statement. Is that what you wish to move?
I will make one modification, if I may, in the opening section. After you use the words for general public access, so that deals with that, I would also like to add the words comma and all usage of the outdoor dining area. So that essentially what that is doing is it's saying the public can't get access to the bar inside but no one can use the outdoor dining area after the hours of operation. So I'll just repeat that suggestion. So after the words general public access in what you read out, putting additional words in that say comma and all usage of the outdoor dining area.
I've got that included. For the minute taker, I have got the language that I will send, so I'll read out to everybody again what I have currently written. The new condition is the operating hours of the bar for general public access, comma, and all usage of the outdoor dining area, comma, is to be restricted to the following hours to the satisfaction of the City of Fremantle. First point, 6 a.m. to midnight, Monday to Sunday. Second point, 12 noon to 10 p.m, Christmas and Good Friday, 3 to a meal. 12 noon to 12 p.m, Anzac Day. 12 midnight to 2 a.m, New Year's Day. New Year's Eve is actually, well, New Year's Day.
New Year's Day. It's adding additional.
Presiding member, before Councillor Sullivan moves that motion, point of clarification, in terms of this panel's authority, are we considering a condition that's relevant to the Form 2, or are we adding a new condition that's part of the Form 1?
We are adding the condition, the changes for the ground level space are not altering dramatically. There's been an increase in the the intensification of the site. So it is open for us to determine that it is appropriate and as part of a Form 2, because there has been changes to the numbers of people who are on site and therefore would be using those common areas.
Okay.
That's my interpretation, but it is open to members to obviously hold their own view on that. Okay, so that is now moved. Is there a seconder for condition 2? It is seconded. Member Ingrid Van Dawson, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you. And I do take on board member RS's concerns as to how far we can go with Form 2. I did look at it in the context of the intensification of the land use, but also because not all of the matters that were conditioned last time were necessarily fully explained. So, for example, waste management was still an ongoing thing. The liquor licensing, those sort of things are things that are still not yet fully clear. And because of that, the nature of the application is we're still gaining information about what the application is. And then Form 2, if that's coming through in the Form 2 process, I think it's reasonable for us to respond to that at the Form 2 stage with this. But notwithstanding that, I mean, this is a common sense amendment that the applicant themselves would likely include in their management approach, because they also have 260 odd guests, or not so odd, in their building that also are going to expect a reasonable level of operational guidance and the like. So I do support that. It is very common now for the City of Fremantle and the Fremantle community to expect that hours of operation be dealt with as a planning matter and not just handballed across to liquor licensing, because a lot of the small bars, for example, get 1 a.m. these days, but also there is not a lot of control from liquor licensing with regard to outdoor alfresco areas. They simply license the whole lot and just set hours of operation for indoor and outdoor spaces, which can actually have significantly greater impacts on the light. I will just speak to the reason why I left the music element off. The previous proposal that the staff were referring to was a rooftop bar that was basically covered in, surrounded in glass. It was really lightweight kind of structure, and immediately over the road were residential buildings, which were similarly glass structures. So they had an amazing capacity to be quite disruptive for surrounding residents, as opposed to this, which is basically street facing at the ground level, and a typical kind of hospitality function that is not dissimilar to the ones that are in the same street. Lastly, the hours of operation. I know that I'm not a great fan of putting in, specific hours of operation for Christmas Day and Easter and all of those things, but essentially the public component of it probably does need to comply with how all of the other operators are able to use their facilities. And I think for that reason, it's unfair for other bars when they can't open for a bar that's sort of got a different type of license to suddenly be able to be open. Again, it's to the satisfaction of the city. There may be some nuances that occur from time to time as you go along that can be dealt with by the city, as opposed to having to always come back to JDAP.
Thank you. Second, I'd like to speak to amendment to a new condition.
Thank you, presiding member. I'll just briefly, yes, I support this new condition as an amendment. I'm comfortable that it fits with the Form 2 proposal going into the intensification. Nothing to add, but yeah, do appreciate including this condition, as it was a concern of mine, just the bar hours of operation in proximity to the residential properties surrounding, and also the concerns that have been raised by the neighbours both today and in submissions and previously. So thank you. Yes, happy to support this amendment.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on amendment 2?
Just seeking further clarification, sorry, about point D and those hours of operation on New Year's Day. The way the condition is worded is to be restricted to, and then I think the city added between the following hours. So where we have 12 midnight to 2 a.m, I'm just seeking clarification of what that implication is. If I've misunderstood that, why it is 12 noon to 2 a.m.
It just allows additional time for New Year's Day. So New Year's Eve will go to 12, and then it just allows that extra 2 hours to extend into New Year's Day. So is that your question?
Yes, it was. It was just the way that the condition was worded. It looks like it's restricted to those 2 hours rather than being additional hours, but I guess that just needs to be in the
word additional in there.
No, it's not. On point 4, it's not. It's on point 1. It's 6 a.m. to midnight, Monday to Sunday. There is no, the clarification for New Year's Day only refers to point 4, 12 midnight to 2 a.m.
Okay, so that's additional time, yes.
Perhaps if we, as the mover, use the words extended trading hours, that would be the typology that liquor licensing would call it.
Is the mover and seconder happy with inclusion of that as a point, endpoint 4, which is 12 midnight to 2 a.m, New Year's Day, additional extended trading hours?
Yes, I'm happy with that.
That's included for the conversation. Over to yourself to speak.
It is unusual, I think, to include hours of operation of this kind, particularly given that we have a town centre location, and it is anticipated that we have these kind of tourism uses in this area. We also have a process outside of planning which deals with liquor licensing associated with hotels and small bars. So happy to accept the local knowledge that these things are relevant. I'm still a little uncomfortable with whether we're going a little bit beyond our remit on this one, and whether these matters can't be taken account of through the liquor licensing approach, which local government has an opportunity to represent the interests of the community on. Have to hear from others.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this motion?
Thank you,
Yes.
presiding member. As I indicated earlier, I do have concerns with the legitimacy of the motion. I accept the reasons that there is an intensification and that might provide the basis for justifying that condition. I accept the movers' planning reasons for indicating some control of those operating hours because of potential consequence and impacts on nearby residents. But on balance, I find that given the RAR doesn't make any references to changes around what was approved as a small bar, not a hotel, but a small bar, I won't support the motion.
Thank you. I will speak to the motion. A bit like other members, I oscillated back and forth listening to everybody's discussion. I would concur that it's unusual to have the controls like this on a development. I suppose I hold a slightly different view from the member in terms of the legitimacy and feel that based on intensification that it could be considered acceptable as a additional condition. That being said, however, I have some significant concerns about actually adding it even with legitimacy of putting a condition on. So I'm separating those two aspects out. And my reasoning is that this is probably one of the appropriate uses and locations for development of this intensity in Fremantle. It is right in the heart of Fremantle. Yes, there's an intensification of beds on the site. We want people in our town centres and activating those town centres. I don't agree that in terms of seeking community that are not permanent residents to be restricted and not to be using the space and within the space. I think it's not what's really intended in terms of town centres. You do want those in that space. I suppose I am somewhat reserved about visitors to the area being disruptors to the area. I think they can be very positive to the area and not a negative consequence to the area. So from my perspective, I do support the interaction on the street, the life on the street. I do have some reservations of capping a visitor accommodation place in a manner that disrupts the activity and the vibrancy in that space. I understand and the sentiments of the residents. I definitely understand the concerns of that interface, and we have seen it in and around Perth in other areas where we've had typically residential areas, and they've changed over time to have intensification of after hours and entertainment activities. For those reasons, I struggle to support a condition of this nature. There are controls through liquor licensing. I do, as I've already said, accept that it can be conditioned. I believe you could use it under a Form 2 for the reasons I've already earlier spoke to. I just don't believe it is appropriate for this site in this location with the zoning that it has over it, with the type of development that is complementary to activation within a town and the other activities that go in that town. So I really struggle to support a change, this condition, for those reasons. Those are my comments. I will hand it back to the mover for right of reply.
Thanks, Presiding Member. The issue of licensing, noise and the city centre being both a residential zone and a place of cultural and entertainment activity has been particularly hotly considered by the City of Fremantle over the last 9 months, and are actively working with the state government and agencies and the like to try and find the happy medium, the happy balance between wanting to encourage a huge number of people to move into the city centre and wanting to encourage a lot of people to visit the city centre to either stay in accommodation and or to utilise the great hospitality and cultural activities that are part of the city. And getting that balance right is really, really challenging. We are not heading down the path of an entertainment zone like Northbridge, which is really far more focused on the entertainment component, we are seeking the balanced approach, and that requires a mutual responsibility between both the residents to protect themselves adequately, but also the change maker, the new person on the block, to make sure that they also contribute in a positive and managed way to that balancing act in a city centre. And that's what the city has been working on. And it will actually be seeking changes in legislation and even allowing for greater noise to be generated within a city centre zone than might be otherwise able to be achieved in a suburban zone through changes to the environmental health regulations and the like, and actually connecting them to the planning regulations. So those sort of changes are, I believe, on their way. I don't believe that we are doing something incorrect in considering this through a Form 2 process. The Form 2 process, yes, the changes are mainly about, well, part of them is about the form of the building, but also the intensification is genuinely there. But as additional information is provided through this process, both written and verbally, it forms part of the Form 2. Now, the city staff were still referring to the bar as a small bar. Well, I don't consider it is a small bar. I consider, based on the information that I've been presented with through this last process, that we are talking about the likelihood of a hotel license. And I don't know if my colleagues here appreciate the significant difference of capacity that a hotel license provides an operator versus a small bar or tavern license. It's a completely different ballgame, and therefore it is appropriate for us to be able to put in hours of operation that are sensible and are ones that an applicant can always come back and say, look, we've been running for 6 months. We would seek a change in that, and they can be dealt with quite easily through reforms. This is about making sure that we have the right balance. In my view, Lilo probably wouldn't object to these. Maybe they might object to the last couple of hours of operations, but I think generally speaking, I would have anticipated that they would have hours of operation of 6 a.m. to midnight for their operations, just for the sake of their own guests who are sleeping immediately above and the like. So I don't consider it's beyond powers to adopt this as part of a Form 2, because the information is still coming through the process and we're responding to that with an amendment. And so I hope that enough members will support it on that basis.
Thank you for right of reply. Members, we are going to the vote on Amendment 2. All those in favour? Against? It is lost for the minute taker. We move back to yourself as the current speaker. Member Andrew Sullivan, would you like to continue speaking?
No, I think I've dealt with all of my matters. Just to sum up, there was never any suggestion from anyone in Fremantle that the land use was inappropriate, and absolutely welcome the proponent Lilo to Fremantle, and I hope they do well.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers that haven't spoken yet on the substantive motion? Yes, Member Ingrid Van Dawson, would you like to speak to the substantive?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Yes. Firstly, also comfortable with this being a Form 2. So whilst it is potentially considered quite a significant change, reducing the height, I think when you look at the proposal or the approved development as a whole, it's not a huge change to it in terms, no change obviously to the land use, and it results in a reduced number of bedrooms, an increased number of beds, but it's quite comparable to me. And I believe that the changes are quite clearly reducing the impact of the development on the heritage and the neighbours and amenity of the area. So I am comfortable with this being a Form 2 application. And as I said, I'm I'm happy to support the proposal to reduce the height, which, as has been said by previous speakers, that reduction in height or the height and Balkan scale was the main talking point at when the original Form 1 came to us, and was, quite the hardest thing, I guess, to support the additional height with the impact on neighbours. So reducing that and taking away that fourth story, which was the primary variation, I think is a good outcome and an improved outcome for the development and the site and neighbours. So and just noting these amendments also supported by the heritage referrals as well as city officers, and I guess coming to us today, I had also had concerns around the waste management and noise. So I appreciate those have been addressed in our amended condition 17. So based on that, yes, I'm comfortable to support this Form 2 application. Thank you.
Thank you. I will speak to the motion. I am supportive of the modifications. I'm containing my commentary primarily to the extent of the changes from the original development approval. I note that some of the concerns raised a variety of matters. However, these were the subject of some of the discussions and decisions on the Form 1, whereas today I'm considering just really those key things on Form 2. As everybody's indicated, the change in the height is, a reduction in that height is supported. I don't have any problems with that, and it's been heavily discussed in the report and in the submissions. In terms of the parking shortfall, I understand that the calculation is based on bedrooms, and so that's quite interesting given that there are a number of bedrooms have up to 8 beds of them. However, the location has already been indicated in relation to this site supports this form of development as well as accessibility to all forms of transportation as well as the nature of the development. So that variation in terms of its parking, I'm satisfied with the comments that have been provided to it. From my perspective, the key matters that have come out of this development have been around impact and noise. So in terms of development intensity, number of beds, increasing the number of people who can stay on the site is not an issue from my perspective. It's really the resultant impact of those elements as we've been discussing today, principally around noise. And as already indicated, as far as I'm concerned, there has been some really good measures put in place in relation to things like the RIA and the noise associated with waste management. We've had information provided through the discussion today regarding the operation of the facility, and that includes the bar area at the front in terms of how the operator is intending to look at the type of services being provided, as well as things like use of bottles and use of glass, etc. in that space was discussed today. And whilst those are not specific elements that we are prepared to discuss or include in any forms of condition, it is an indication of the information that the applicant has regarding the operation of this facility, both within the amenity of the broader community as well as for the occupants within the site. I'm satisfied that based on the condition changes that we've given and based on the changes, that this is an appropriate development and a welcome development to the centre of Fremantle, supporting a vibrant group of individuals coming and experiencing both Fremantle and using it as a stepping stone to other parts of the city and or access to open water, to Rottnest and places like that, which this location creates great opportunities for. So overall, I'm supportive of the changes. With the move on, like a lot of reply and close of debate.
Thank you, presiding member. Having listened to everybody, I'm very comfortable still to obviously support this application. I think has been a wholly appropriate use and configuration for this location within the town centre. It's always difficult to accommodate infill development, particularly where there are residences nearby, but we do here have a town centre. We do have a primary tourist node, not only for the city, but also for the state and arguably a landmark location for the nation. So I think it's appropriate to look at diversity of accommodation particularly diversity of accommodation for a wide range of demographics. What I understand so far from the earlier approvals to this point is that the applicant Lilo is working closely with the City of Fremantle, and the city is welcoming of this collaboration. So I have confidence that the way that we have amended today's Form 2 and the discussions that have occurred around other matters will be taken on board and continue to be worked on through to the point of implementation and ongoing management. In any case, whether it be Lilo or another operator, I'm quite comfortable that these changes that we have made today, or accepting this Form 2, is appropriate for the land use in this location. So nothing more to say at this point. Thank you. Happy to close debate.
Thank you. Debate has been closed. We are now going to the vote on the substantive inclusive of the amendment carried. All those in favour? Is carried unanimously for the minute taker. Move back to the agenda. There are no item 5, section 31 SAT reconsiderations. In part D, we have a list of the applications listed there. I have no comments to make on those. We now close today's meeting at 11:27. Thank everybody for your participation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, crap, man.